Okay, so here is my finished city after I've added the gradients. It basically, the reason we did this is so that it would add some depth and interest and give the buildings a little bit more detail, okay? And it does. It, instead of just looking like solid blocks, it's showing you what's in front, what's in back, etc., etc. Okay? So now we need to actually make a reflection of it. So I'm going to collapse this first layer, and I'm going to create a new layer that I am going to drag to the bottom. Okay, so I want layer 2 on the bottom. There's nothing on it yet. Now, if I click, see this circle over here? If I click there, it selects everything on layer 1. And now if I hold my Alt or Option key down and click on this little blue square next to it and drag it down, it makes a perfect duplicate of that layer. Okay? So you see how now I have two that are exactly alike. Okay, so what I want to do then is I want my top layer, I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to call it City. My bottom layer, I'm going to rename it and call it Reflection. That way I don't get mixed up as to what is what. I'm going to select my bottom layer, my reflection layer, and I am going to actually want to reflect it. And we're going to reflect it. First, let me zoom out a little bit. Command minus. By going to the Object menu, Transform, and you'll see Reflect here. And when we hit Reflect, first off, I want to make sure that you have a preview made. We are going to reflect it horizontally. Okay, that way the bottom is actually at the top. And then I'm going to click OK. Now, we need to take some of our details out of the reflection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the city layer by clicking on the eyeball. So right now all I have is the reflection. I'm going to zoom back in so I can see it better. And I want to take out all the windows. Now, I realize that's going to be a little bit tedious, but we can make this easier if we go ahead and ungroup these. And I'm going to do that with a Command Shift G. You know that Command G groups. Command Shift G will ungroup. So I'm going to hit that a few times until each of my windows is a separate entity. Okay, so I'm going to hit pause on my recording because I'm going to go in and spend a minute or two deleting all those, and you're going to need to do the same. Also, an easy way to do this, or an easier way to do this, might be to select, and then if you shift click on the buildings, you're left with just the windows to delete. Okay, so you saw how I did that. Instead of doing each one separately, you can, and sometimes it's going to select more than what you want, so be careful. And that looks like just windows, I hope. There you go. Okay, so now I'll let you go back and do that. Okay, with all your windows deleted, it's going to look something like this. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. We're going to have to move some things around. So I'm going to start by selecting my city, and I'm simply going to use my shift and my arrows, and I'm going to bump this up to where it reaches the very tip of my document. Then I'm going to select my reflection, and I'm going to do the same so that it reaches the bottom. And I realize that I don't have quite enough space. So I'm going to go to File, Document Setup. Up here, see where it says Edit Artboards? Well, I want to drag this down, and it's going to be easier for me if I have a ruler so that I can tell you. So I'm going to go to View, Rulers, Show Rulers. I'm going to drag this down. I'm going to say down here, that is almost, well, there's 900. I can edit it later and make it smaller if I need to. So now I'm going to grab that reflection again, and I am going to use my shift. Oops. Let me get my selection tool first. Grab that in my shift and down to where it is just about there. Okay, so I've got it just about touching. The tips there touching. Okay, so what we're going to need to do now, because of how this is on a perspective, we have to, when we make a reflection, it isn't just simply flipping it upside down, because now we have these blank spots. We have got to do something that's called skew it to make it look like a true reflection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my selection tool, and I'm going to select everything on this left side of the reflection. Okay, and be careful, you don't want to have anything on this right side. I'm going to come over here, and I have Scale, Shear, Reshape. I'm using Shear. Now, once I get that tool, you're going to notice this little registration point here. I want to move that registration point up here to the tip. So I'm going to put that right there. Now, if I hold down the Command key, well, actually, do I hold? No, I don't need the Command key. And drag this up, holding the Shift key will help me, once I start dragging it, holding the Shift key will help me drag it so that it meets in a straight line. And that is called skewing. Okay, so that's giving a perfect reflection below it. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the right side. So I'm going to select all those parts. And if I accidentally select something on the right, I will deselect it. I'm going to get the shear tool again and change my registration point. And then I'm going to start dragging and hold the Shift key so that I go straight up to meet it. Oops. And that looks like I'm going to zoom in a little bit. That needs a little bit more. No. Okay, I'm going to undo. I'm going to undo and do it one more time because that last little bit is not cooperating. There. Now I'm holding my Shift key to get it up there. And the snap to is just not letting it snap to where I want. So I guess it's going to be slightly off. And now I'll select my reflection. I'm going to bump it down just a little bit. And I'm going to zoom out to full level. And I guess I will be okay with that. All right, so once you have your reflection skewed the way you want it and you're satisfied with it, click on your reflection layer so that you have all of the parts of your reflection. And I do want to point out, by the way, because you may or may not have noticed this, that you might have some windows that are kind of hidden in the background. That's okay. That's all right. Select all of them again. Let's group those so that they are all those pieces are one group again. And then on the reflection layer, we are going to create a rectangle. It's got to cover the entire reflection. And we want this to be a gradient with black on the left or at the top, white on the bottom. And this should be in your reflection layer. Make sure it's not in your city layer. Okay? Now, if you will select, by holding down the Shift key, both that rectangle and the group, you have a transparency panel. And if you don't see your transparency panel, again, go to your window menu, and there you'll find it. What we're going to do is we're going to make this have an opacity mask. And when you do, it should look something like this. And so it has kind of made this reflection opaque. However, we can do one better if we then click on the invert mask. And if we deselect everything, we now have our reflection looking the way that it should. You can, if you need to, bump things up a little bit. Okay, and I'm actually going to bump up that whole reflection layer till it meets, oops, just like that. And then if needed, and mine needs it, I'm going to edit my artboard again to get rid of that extra space. And I may as well do it on the side a little bit as well. Try to even it out. And then now my city is good and ready to save and ready to export as a JPEG.